Hello everybody. Today we're going to be identifying the noise signature of the Neo, and then we're going to be upgrading its stealth propellers, and then we're going to see what the noise signature is once the propellers are installed. So without further ado, I have the tools necessary to do the job. So I have a standard small screw kit, and then I also have another kit that has more bits in it, and then this is the prop kit that we're going to be installing from Master Airscrew. As you can see, these are specifically branded for the Neo, and they're a stealth version. They're black. We do offer these through our website, so if you're interested, just please go on to, I believe it's more products through the hub. So if you want to, just check it out, and we'd be more than happy to get you your product swiftly. So this is the Neo. So first thing is first, I'm going to identify a noise signature. So I'm going to turn my dB meter on, and right now, to give you a reference, my speech pattern is between 67 and right now I'm talking to you about 78 dB. So what I'm going to do here is take the drone and put it into hover mode. I'm going to make sure all this is secured because it will try to have some downforce wash, and we will be able to notice that. So I'm going to activate the drone. Then I'll just use the app just so I can get a even keel hover, and then from there I'll be able to replicate that hover, and then we'll be able to get a solid baseline for the performance value of these props. So thank you for bearing with me. Okay, so now that I have the manual controls in place, I have the dB monitor on, and it is indeed working. As you can see, I'm talking louder, the meter's going up. So let's take off and do a hover. So at the top, we're getting about 100 dB. At the bottom, we're getting 110. So we have a variability between 98 and 110. And it varies by how I get the microphone set and where it's actually being set. Now what I'll do is I'll go up, and I'm going to set the dB monitor right down here. Okay, so that jumped 3 dB on us. So now I'm going to turn the dB monitor off. I'm going to shut the screen off. And now what we're going to do, we'll power down the drone for safety purposes. Then we're going to get at our kit here. I absolutely love these air screws, and the nice thing about them is they're a lot more firm and rigid than factory. But with that being said, they do have a tendency to crack and or break at the tips a little easier than factory. So the main reason why I'm looking at the screws is to ensure they're the same height value as the screws that are on there, And if not, we will look into that, because that was one of the main problems on the Phantom original, was that people were running prop guards, and when they ran their prop guards, they didn't remember that the screw height was actually greater than. So when they went to reinstall their normal setup, they ran into issues because the screws were actually hitting the motor that was spinning, because they were just slightly high enough to cause that little effect. So as a protective cage around each side of this Neo, it does make it kind of difficult to get off. I'm manually doing this, and so I'm finding the best ease with applying directional force towards what I'm trying to undo, and then just popping it real quick. So start in the back, if you look, and we're just gonna apply a little pressure here. We're gonna apply a little pressure, boom. So then from this stage, we're just literally gonna pry our way back. All right, so we're gonna have to do that one. And then there's one little guy in the middle down here that's tough to get to. So a lot of people will fly their Neos just like this. There's nothing wrong with it, but I think from a safety, security, and longevity standpoint, it is nice to have these little pieces of plastic to keep the whole package tight. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify which way's up, which way's down, which way's clockwise, which way's counterclockwise. And if you look on the prop itself, you'll be able to see a spin marking. So literally right there, right above the screw holes, there's a dash. When you see that dash, you know it's a counterclockwise movement. When you see no dash, it's going to be a clockwise movement. So you actually have to set these across from each other. And there's, when you set up your motors, your speed controls, and then you actually set your RC up, that's when you will program which motor does what, and then what value you want to assign to it. So with this orientation, I can clearly see the same markings that I showed you on the factory props. So I'm going to set these off to the side like this, and I'm going to set these off to the side like this, so I know where they go. Then I have the screws, and a lot of times I have a little dish, Petri tray. This is a smaller project, so I won't worry about that. I'm going to get a Phillips screwdriver, and then I'm going to proceed with removing the factory props. So you want to make sure you have the right sized screwdriver. So I'm using a 2 by 30 millimeter, and that seems to be the best to get enough gripping force on each screw, but yet it will not strip the screw out. If you run a smaller screwdriver in here, you will risk stripping the screws out. And I do not like stripping anything if you don't have to. So now I'm going to look at the screw height compared to the new incoming, and it does appear to be fractionally different, and I'm assuming that has to do with, if you see here, these are fully more ingrained into the hub, as where this sits on top of the hub a little bit more. So now we have one, and I'm going to keep the factory screws with the factory propellers, and I'm going to keep the aftermarket screws with the aftermarket propellers. So that way, in case we need to do a swap, etc., they'll be handy. So usually prop swaps are a lot quicker. They are literally a plug and play type solution. This drone in particular has 2 screws, and that makes it just slightly more unique. So I double, triple check orientation pattern, making sure the fit fits, and then I'll go and install. So these have a bit of Loctite on them already, otherwise I would just do the smallest little dollop. But since these are good to go, I'm gonna do a light snug down until I get both screws in place, and then I'll go back and forth until they're both taut. This will prevent cross threading and to ensure your blade sits flat. Okay, one prop installed. You can see that footprint's far more aggressive. Now I'm going to take the other clockwise prop and install that one. Just setting it in place, taking my time. When you do some of this smaller stuff, it's better to take your time. Even if it takes longer, you'll do it right. Having the right tools help too. Alright. So the difference between a normal plastic propeller and any sort of carbon propeller is going to be its power to weight ratio is significantly lighter, so you're going to get more torque, more snappiness. The negative to that would be when you just slightly even go near something and just clip or scratch aggressively a blade and render it useless. Sometimes for people, they're not used to how fast and sharp the blade is in regards to the reaction time, and so a lot of pilots will actually enjoy flying without carbon props because of this. So you may be saying like performance. Well, that's fine and dandy, but it doesn't work in certain circumstances. And let me tell you one good circumstance. In cinematography, you want some of the cleanest sweeping images, and so you're going to use a more flexible base prop that can handle the wind varieties that you're going through and is less sharp. So your turns are going to be smoother. You're not going to have as much performance value, but you're going to have your flight characteristics that you're trying to achieve for your mission. So talking, working. I think the quality's okay on these. You can tell they're more mass produced. There's a little section here that on the normal blades probably wouldn't have been tolerable, but they're allowing it to go through. So when you actually go to cut this, I'm assuming they use some sort of knife. Well, that knife missed this little corner. I will see. Nope, it doesn't have any issues with touching the housing, so we're going to call it okay. If I was doing a custom install, I would hands down take a very, very fine diamond grinding device and just slowly take that excess away. And whether it be an inch, a tenth of an inch, a thousandth of an inch, everything's relative on a scale, and it just depends on what scale you're trying to go for. So tighten, but not over tighten. Make sure the rotation pattern works. Make sure the blades don't hit. And we are clear on every single one of those. So now what I'm going to do is put the prop guards back on. So if you saw before, you noticed that this one was kind of a difficult one to get at. There's a little spot on here I'm going to clean before we put it on. Cleanliness is friendliness. I know you've heard that for a long time, but I preach it. Okay. Now we're going to install one on little boy, and then we'll go over to the other side. You can see it literally just snaps right on into place. A little bit of force and you're done. And these prop guards do a really good job. You gotta really try hard to get out of work if you're trying to get your finger cut on one of these, because there is just, it's almost near impossible with an adult finger. Yeah, a little kiddo finger, sure, it could slip up in there, but like, my pinky's the only one that fits, and it has to be sideways. So all right, well, these are our old factory props, and I'm gonna put them in the bag that we got our new props with, and then I'm actually gonna label this bag after I get done with the video. Master Airscrew always has some cool stickers too. So sometimes they will come with a guide on what you actually need to change. I'm gonna grab one of those real quick. So on some of the other Master Airscrews that you might be applicating, you might have questions when you get a little sticker like this and it tells you to adjust settings. Well, it advises you to adjust these settings based upon the parameters of the new propeller. So they have actually tested this propeller on this product, not this one, but I use this as an example. This was for my Mavic Air, and it told me the values to change. So the nice thing is it even highlights the values that need to get changed. So a lot of the times people just assume that you have access to full throttle, that is not the case a lot of the times. Certain functions within your device will not cooperate correctly if they're not speed rated relative. So your pitch, your roll, your yaw, and your vertical are relative in regards to utilizing your gimbal correctly and your flying parameters. So they're actually making recommendations that you slightly bump or decrease your pitch and your yaw. And you may not be aware, or may be aware, but you can technically overclock these and give your value 120% rather than 100%, and then you'll get another 20% performance value out of that function control. Should you do this? No. You should never run something at 100% capacity for a majority or any of the time. That's why putting a standard of 80%-ish buffer in place is very, very important for equipment longevity. So now, with the propellers being installed and the cool little sticker swag box set away, I'm going to take my trash, set it off to the side, and then we will get our dB meter out again and activate it. And it looks like I'm still talking around 60 and 80 on the high end. And if you recall before, when we launched this, we were getting between 95 and 110 dB. Thank you for your patience. I finally got the app going. I'm going to put it on manual control like we did before. We're going to take off and hover, and we're going to get a decibel rating. As you can see, we have about a 5 dB drop, and below we're not going over 99. So now I'm going to go up. We're at 80, 85 at the most. And we're going to go down. Is it quieter? Yes. Is it significantly noticeably quieter? No. One thing I can specifically tell you though is the pitch is far less aggressive of a whine and more of a propeller sound. When we had the old propellers on, I noticed that it really screamed, and this seems like it's definitely the same level of performance, but it screams significantly less. So if you're going in a quieter environment and you want to try to mitigate your footprint, for $13 on a $200 drone, this is one of the best investments you can buy. You can also find these for any of the other aerial units you may have, and you can go to nicorp.com and click on the Master Airscrew link. If you can't find it, just do some searching. We're working hard to update the website on a regular basis. Have a great day. Thank you for watching.